your red jacket, Mr. Alex.
Yes.
You really stand out this
You
morning.
mean my raincoat? Yeah, I had to make sure to wear it because the rain has been coming down intermittently. So, that being said, yeah, you like the red?
You look nice. You look nice.
Okay.
You look
Well,
nice.
thank you
Stand out,
very
man.
much.
Just people, so today we'll be discussing, the Digo Martin Borough, they're celebrating the third anniversary Friday, March past.
Well, the official date is actually the 20th of June.
Or the 20th of
However,
June.
the program was planned. I don't know what the problems were, but the program went a little different this year. The actual borough parade is on Friday and reception. And then last week, Saturday before the last, they would have had their church service, the annual church service. So things are a bit delayed this time around. But the actual borough day is on the 20th of June, as of 3 years ago. Yeah, okay.
You're right. Thank you very much for that piece of information. Now, as the former chairman of Digo Martin Regional Corporation, Mr. Sigler Jack, tell us, how did you become involved in the Digo Martin Regional Corporation? Because you come like the main man involved in this whole thing, the borough thing, and we becoming a borough and all of that.
Yes. I was actually invited to become an alderman in the Digo Martin Regional Corporation in 2015. That was when Darrell Smith, who was the then chairman, demitted office to run for office as a member of parliament. And in situations like that, you must demit office so that you could run for another office. And I was asked to become an alderman in the corporation.
All right. So, tell me, why was it necessary for Digo Martin to become a borough?
Okay. When I got in there, what would have happened? I just had 1 year or some months, And at the end of that period, I sat there and I looked on, I listened, I participated in all that was going on as an alderman. Everybody else there, they were there before me for about 2 years. And I got a grip on what was actually taking place. And then I'm asking myself, why is Digo Martin not a borough? And except just being a municipal corporation. And I started to do my research. And my research drove me to a point where I realized that Digo Martin had more to offer than most of the other boroughs. Not all. Definitely not Port of Spain, definitely not San Fernando, and to some extent, not Arima. Remember, we have 14 municipal corporations, and not all of them are boroughs. And in my research, when I said that Digo Martin has more to offer, I'll just point out one or two things. We had the sitting Chamber of Commerce, right? We had definitely a well-built-up infrastructure, which including businesses, hotels, you name it. And I'm talking about big businesses. But most of all, we had a whole waterfront. And we had the most important waterfront because our waterfront held the Army and the Coast Guard, and I see that as part of our front line in defense. Those were some of the things, along with the fact that we had, a lot of people didn't know, we had a branch of the University of UTT in Charamas that dealt with marine life and a host of other things. We had high schools, of course, our schools in general. We had a technical school in MIC was there. And, and I fed off of these things and I started to put my research down on paper. I did not discuss it with my council members at the time because I really didn't know what their thinking was. So I decided to do all the groundwork before going forward. And coming to the end of my 1-year term, which would have been the end of the term, for all the other councillors and aldermen, I decided to take a motion to the council at one of our statutory meetings, outlining these things. And I know I caught them by surprise, but everybody was in a sort of quiet disposition. Well, like, what is this? Where is this coming from? But after outlining, based on the research and so on, the motion was moved, it was seconded and unanimously accepted. After that move, it was then taken to the hierarchy of the party and the government at the time, and they too accepted it. What would have happened, I had to move 2 subsequent motions to keep that thing alive, because it's not something that happens overnight. And when the last motion was taken is when all the groundwork was done and the government of the day accepted it, along with Superior Municipal Corporation. We both became boroughs. Our date was the 20th of June, as I pointed out, 3 years ago, and 23 it was, yeah. And the rest is history.
Now, when you hear about the Diego Martin area becoming a borough, a lot of people just think about just Diego Martin, but based on what you were saying, because you mentioned about the waterfront and Chaguaramas and all of that. So could you delineate the boundaries of the Diego Martin
Okay,
borough?
I will do so generally. The Diego Martin Borough Corporation, if we can take it from Maraval, you see where you enter in Maraval from just before where that KFC is in Maraval, there before the embassy, where you turn in to come in there. If you could take that as part of the boundary, you go back to Anderson Terrace, you're going all the way back to Maraval, you're coming over Paramin, right? So you're dealing with Maraval, Diego Martin, Pitti Valley, and the end of our boundary, believe it or not, is down the islands.
Well, this is what I'm not realizing, because I never even, that's the reason why I ask you, because I was never even of the view that all down the islands will be part
Yes,
of.
that's definitely part of the borough. And as chairman, I had to go down there to deal with situations on several occasions.
So you see, this is where these these programs, are very important in terms of educating, edifying, and informing the public. Because a lot of these things, as simple as it is, a lot of people wouldn't know the boundaries, including myself. To see.
And you live in the area.
And I live in the area. And that's the reason why I posed that question. Now, what does before I ask that question, what's the difference between a municipality, and this is for the education of the public, and a borough?
I want to be, let me put it generally. It is something that is up, and this is why I wrote that whole synopsis as to why, as I measure it against others. You have privileges, more privileges than a normal municipality. You can create things like bylaws to do a number of things that cannot be done by an ordinary, or I may not use that word, by a municipality. Like, for instance, if you want to acquire land and all this sort of thing, a borough could move towards that. Not that you're going to get it, but what you can get generally, like if you want land and that type of thing, you still have to approach the government. But you would have a little more leverage to get more than they can. You can impose laws and fines with up to a certain level that could affect the public. You know, this is just to make a sort of general statement. But most of all, your council would have a little more leverage. I don't want to use the word power. A little more leverage to get a number of things done.
No. What does it take to become a borough? I mean, some of the things that you all would have. Sorry about that if you wouldn't get me clearly. Thank you very much. Yeah, what does it take to become a borough? Because, you know, that transition from being a municipality to a borough, the kind of things that you all would have had to go through. I mean, you being a chairman at the time, you would be the best person to really let the public know the kind of thing. Obviously, certain laws would have had to, and amendments and that kind of thing, probably through Parliament. Please, could you enlighten us, please?
Right. It depends on the government of the day. When you are making your case to become a borough, you have to change the act to suit your situation. It must go to, after being passed at the corporation, where in the third instance, when I move the motion, from there it goes to the Ministry of Local Government, and the Ministry of Local Government would do all the paperwork to change your standing from that of a municipality so that you can get some of the benefits of being a borough. It has to go to Parliament, and both houses would discuss, and both houses would have to agree before that actually happens. As a matter of fact,
Mr. Jack, I'm sorry, I got to interject here. We're a little past the 2:00 marker, but we got to get the news in. So let's get that, and we shall continue.
Yeah, of course.
On Beyond Limits.
This is TTT News on Talk City 91.1 FM.
We do apologize for the late start. Here's the news, the 2 p.m. newscast on Talk City. Tobago man is before the courts facing...
Why is Talk City 91.1 FM the leading talk station in Trinidad and Tobago? Because nobody delivers conversations like we do. Start your mornings with Ground Report. Andy Pitbull Williams, Lennox Smith, and Nigel Snipes setting the agenda from 6 to 9 a.m. Then it's Off the Record with Stefan Reese and Mr. X, Fearless Talk, and the issues everybody's discussing. Stay connected with Sharon. Ticket Front with Officer Shabadi. Go Beyond Limits with Roland Stewart. Drive Home with Heavy Duty and David Welch on Under the Radar. And wrap up your day with Kingsley and OB on The Wrap Up. Real talk, real people, real Trinidad and Tobago. Listen live on Talk City 91.1 FM and follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Talk City 91.1 FM, the #1 talk station in Trinidad and Tobago.
The excitement of world football ignites with the final VAR. Victories, analysis, reviews, the goals, the calls, the experts are on the ball. The final VAR, live on Thursdays from 8:30 p.m. on TTT and TTT Live Online, starting June 11th. From July 16th to August 1st, Tobago comes alive with its greatest celebration of culture, history, and tradition, the Tobago Heritage Festival 2026. Talk City 91.1 FM invites you to journey with us as we discover the people, places, and stories behind this remarkable festival. Here's today's feature.
The Tobago Heritage Festival is much more than a series of cultural shows. It is Tobago's largest annual celebration of history, traditions, and community spirit. Created in the mid-1980s to preserve the island's unique customs, the festival brings Tobago's past to life through music, dance, storytelling, food, and folklore. Unlike many festivals that take place in one location, the Tobago Heritage Festival spreads across villages throughout the island. Each community proudly presents its own traditions, giving visitors an authentic look at Tobagonian life and culture. This year's festival runs from July 16th to August 1st, 2026, celebrating the importance of community, togetherness, and cultural identity. The Tobago Heritage Festival 2026, keeping Tobago's rich heritage alive for future generations.
Tobago Heritage Festival 2026. Let we tell the whole story.
Bruh, you know, I have a bone to pick with you. Eh? You still supporting that side, yeah?
Obviously, till the day I die.
But you really think they could win our title again?
You do know we are the defending champions. We have a player that's going to have a fairy tale ending. You do know that we come with a lot of experience and a whole bunch of youngsters.
Welcome everyone back to Beyond the Limits. Today we have Mr. Sigler Jack co-hosting together with me. My name is Roland, Stewart, in case you're wondering. And we are discussing the third anniversary, this year the third anniversary of the Diego Martin Regional Corporation. And Mr. Sigler Jack, as we were saying, you were talking about the laws and etc., the things that you would have had to have gone through, you and others, in order to bring to fruition the Diego Martin Regional Corporation. You want to add anything to what you were saying just now?
Yes. Let me just say, a committee was formed at the government level where I represented the Diego Martin Municipal Corporation. As a matter of fact, I would have produced all the necessary information as to why we at the Diego Martin Municipal Corporation felt that we should become a borough. I wrote a whole synopsis, so to speak, and it was generally accepted by the committee. And we went ahead, we met on a number of occasions, and they fine-tuned everything in a way where it could be taken to Parliament for discussion and passing. That went very smoothly, and at the end of the day, as I said before, I attended all the parliamentary debates, and both the Diego Martin Regional Corporation and the Siparia Regional Corporation, they were both accepted, and we had different dates as to when we should become a borough, or was on the 20th of June, 2023. Subsequent to that, we would have also had a ribbon cutting ceremony, because I really want to talk about this one, where we had a borough building to go into, as you would see in Diego Martin when you head in west, opposite West Mall. You'll see the Diego Martin Borough Corporation Administrative Building, which was opened officially by the then Prime Minister. Why I want to talk about this is that we have a unique situation there where the building, that borough administrative building, that was not at a cost to the members, or to the public, or the public's purse. Something unique came out of that, where the Diego Martin now Borough Corporation entered into an agreement with FCB, where they would have agreed to take rental of half of that building, where they have a magnificent office right now. And the money, we had the land, we took the mortgage from them, and that mortgage is what produced the building. However, they are to occupy, and this is a written agreement, an agreement for upwards of about 25 years as our tenant. And the payment of that mortgage is coming out of the tenancy. So it balances itself. At the end of the day, it doesn't cost the public anything. It doesn't cost the borough anything in terms of having to pay a mortgage at the end of it any month. That rental that payment goes straight into that mortgage thing. And that was, to me, one of the big things in becoming a borough.
Great. I mean, excellent. I just wish probably we could have similar agreements when it comes to that kind of relation, government, private sector relations.
Government business arrangement. And I am wondering, it felt unique to me. It may not have been, because I didn't research if it was done in other areas, not necessarily in corporation. I know it wasn't done in corporation, but I don't see why. But then again, it must be convenient to the mortgager.
Well, I mean, if you ask me,
it was convenient to FCB.
Well, I mean, if you ask me, that will be convenient to both parties.
Yes, both parties.
You said, because the public can really have to pay, and yet still they occupied, and yet still, whatever thing going back to you. So I just hope that, that it could be a situation, providing that is a unique situation, that the other governments or whatever governing body could always copy in the future.
Yeah, it's something worth copying.
It could be done to the benefit of everybody.
Yes.
Now, you being a former chairman and a former alderman, could you tell us what your experience was like?
Now, I would say that was one of my crowning experiences in my life's work. What I mean by that, I didn't ask to become an alderman. I never lobbied to become an alderman. One day I got a call from the general secretary of the party that I was in, and at the time,
that'd be Ashton Ford.
That would be Ashton Ford, advising me that a decision was taken to put my name forward as an alderman to replace Darrell Smith when he was debating office to become a member of parliament. And as I said before, you had to resign your position. So I went in there as an alderman. I was very surprised, really, really surprised. However, I went along with it. And then the next call that I got is that, because the EBC had to approve to make sure that I was legitimately a member of the borough, of the region, of Diego Martin region, so to speak, which would qualified me. I'm in good standing. And next thing, I was called to be sworn in. And that happened, and I sat there for 1 year as an alderman. In that year period, I would have learned the ropes. And what made it easy for me is that I came from the public service. And I know and understand how the public service works. And I think I was able to make some contributions to help those people who were sitting in council with me to understand some of the things you could do and some of the things you cannot do. one thing in particular. Members of council who have no or had no public service experience feel that you could sit around the table and make decisions that we are the council and that we could do this and we could do that and all that sort of thing. It's not that simple, that's not how it is. There's somebody there called a CEO, the Chief Executive Officer. That person is there to protect the public purse. And you may sit there and decide, I want to do A, B, X, Y, Z, etc. And we are the council, and all we have to do is file a motion, unanimously accepted, and you could go ahead and do it. It doesn't work like that. The CEO could tell you, no, you cannot do that. One of the main things that it was not budgeted for. There is no allocation for that, but the allocation is the main part. If there's no allocation for something which should have been in your budget, when you prepare your budget to go to the Minister of Finance, if it is not there and you want to do it, you have to seek other avenues to do it. You cannot just via funds just like that to do something that was not in your budget. And if you want to via funds, you could move a motion to via the funds. However, you have to go back to the Ministry of Finance, and the Minister of Finance have to approve it. You're saying, but a lot of people have the feeling that a whole lot of corrupt things going on in these boroughs and all that. I am not saying it cannot happen, but there's a process and a procedure where if you want to change things or introduce things, it must go back to your line ministry, and two, the Minister of Finance. But the Minister of Finance is the more important person, because if he says no, it's no. He or she says no, it's no. However, the onus is on your line ministry to send it forward, because your line minister could also stop you. Yeah. Right? So, if you want, I would now like to move on to what I will call the structure of a municipality / borough. It's just a matter of different names and different authorities. At the municipality / borough, and I'm using that word / because I was there when it became a borough. It became a borough under my chairmanship. I could not be, unless they wanted to, swear me in as the mayor, but that didn't happen because I was sworn in as a chairman. So, demitting office, I would have demitted as a chairman, because a borough cannot have a chairman. But it was just months away, and I guess the hierarchy chose not to. They chose to do it when the new person comes in, where they would be sworn in as a mayor. I had no problem with that, really. I did the work. What I personally set out to achieve was achieved, and I am happy all the way. Now, the chairman, as everyone would know, / mayor, would be responsible for the overall running of the administration. You are subdivided into a number of committees. Some of the most significant ones are health, like infrastructure, and so on. But then you have a number of subcommittees that will deal with sports and all this type of thing, all these other areas. The ministry would have what they would have called standard committees that you must have. And you can now form subcommittees out of that. Now, what we did at the borough, I met it that way and I kept it that way. We try not to go beyond 8 committees because there are some municipalities out there have 14 committees. As a matter of fact, I was told of a particular municipality that had about 22 committees. And I couldn't
22
figure that
22
because that
committees.
means that you'll have council members chairing more than one committee.
Yes.
I, as chairman, chose not to chair any committee. That was a choice of my own. Because committee members get extra remuneration for managing committees. I chose to stay away from that. My responsibility as a chairman was to oversee all these committees and make sure things are running right. I was also responsible for heading what you call the statutory committee. That, it's called a statutory committee. That is one where at the end of the month, you must have that according to law, where you oversee and all committee members report on what they would have done during the course of that month. And you have at the end of the month, maybe give or take a week or so, to submit that report to head office, to your line minister. If it's one thing you do not do, is let that you cannot bypass it. You must report every single month. And I was told later on in discussion with the then PS that the municipalities are ranked based on your performance. When I took office, the ranking was very low. I wouldn't call the number, we will not last. And within 1 year, it came up to the 3rd. You have 14 municipalities, and we were way below 3. And I was able to get it up to number 3. Before I left, I didn't try to find out if we were still there. And I never asked who was number 1.
Well, I was about to ask you, was number 2 or number 1?
No, I didn't. I really did not want to know.
Yeah.
You know. Yes, everybody competes in their own way, but being ranked too low bothers me. I would try my best. I don't want to let my other municipalities feel that I am competing against them. This is why I never asked, and I did not want to know. Now, there are some key areas in a municipality or a borough, one and the same, that they are concerned, when I say that the public is concerned about. The number one area is health. Why? Garbage collection, right? When you have disaster management, probably is number 2. Why? Right now we're in the hurricane season. But health is year-round and is not a seasonal thing. That's an area that troubled me. And an area where we, as a council, we always have issues, problems, garbage collection. Now, it's not that we didn't have the things in place, you know. We have, in all, we had maybe about 10 major, 5 major contractors and about 5 smaller contractors. The major contractors, they would pick up garbage in communities, main roads, etc. However, the smaller contractors with the smaller vehicles, they have to meander those roads that go up hills, that roads that are narrow and no turning point, which has always been a major contention with the public, that the garbage truck is not coming up to my area. Why? There's no place to turn these vehicles when you get there. And the long distances you have to travel to back out those vehicles. So you find from time to time people bring their garbage out to a point where the garbage truck could pick it up. You lived in La Puerta at one time in that area. I think we know our conversation.
La Puerta? No, I'm Paul McDade,
Paul-
Coronage.
Right, oh yes, okay. Then,
I live right next
then
to Victoria
I figure
Place.
you may have been familiar with the problem. There are some points when you go up La Puerta, if you know La Puerta well, up some hills, you can't even get the garbage truck up there. So the people have to bring it down at a point where it can be picked up. However, in terms of state lands, we have no space up there to say, well, create a garbage collection area. However, lower La Puerta, there's a little space that we were not able to acquire it because it was owned privately. And we also could not commandeer that space. However, as a borough, you can now commandeer that space. That's one of the things you could do as a borough.
One of the benefits of a borough.
Yeah, right. One of the benefits of a borough. And people would bring their garbage down, and if the garbage truck doesn't show up one day or two, the amount of garbage that would pile up there, isn't that funny? Right? So there are little things that would cause the public to be a little upset with the borough, but it's not that the borough is not concerned. They try to manage everything. And if at some point where these garbage is collected, somebody that is living close to it, they are annoyed about it, they would come to you. And we have to find out. So most time they want you to move, but if you move, you're creating a bigger problem. So we have to, something we have to manage.
But let me ask you this. Kukurita, I want to believe, will fall under the same administrative district as the Diego Martin Regional Corporation. That will be under your purview, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just speaking about garbage because I know recently a couple of times have passed, and right there, like it's a opposite peak somewhere around there. Sometimes you'll see a lot of garbage in bags, sometimes lying up there after about a week or two ago.
Peaks you're talking about in...
No, the opposite peaks. On the way to Port of Spain.
On the way to Port of Spain.
Yes. Something up to about 2 weeks ago, you see like a lot of garbage in bags, something lying up there for like about probably a day, 2 days, or even 3 days or so. Probably even a week and all. So as you mentioned that, now I was wondering if that is...
No, let me put my hand up in there and break some that one. Believe it or not, that area where they are picking up that always have a problem, that is Port of Spain, you know. Not Diego Martin.
Oh, yeah, well, that was asking to the boundaries.
Yes.
So that area fall under the Port
Yeah,
of Spain
that area.
under the Diego Martin.
Yes.
Because there's also the overpass that will fall on the Port of Spain too. I remember Alex and I spoke about that. The overpass when you leave in Fort George to come over to Kukurit. That overpass, there's at least about 2 rough patches there.
Yes.
Sometimes, I mean, I don't know in the bus something going on. I don't hold on for dear life. And,
yeah, you always have a problem with boundaries, you know. Who's responsible, but we all know who is responsible. Why that pileup takes place. You see, if you look at the cluster of people who live in that area, the trucks cannot go up where they live. So they walk down and drop their garbage there. And if you miss a day in picking up, you, the traveling public, would find that this is really annoying. It is offensive to the eye. It is offensive to who lives close by. And that type of situation you run into.
Now, potholes. That is something, I mean, under You'll find potholes all over the place. Now, in terms of, I mean, you will have knowledge being the former chairman. I'm sure that you would have tried to rectify all these kind of things. What's the problem really? Why Trinidad and Tobago is bedeviled with potholes all over the place? I mean, whether it's Diego Martin, Carnage. I mean, we all know that Wassa is part of the problem.
Yes, and I agree with you. But let me tell you something, from the way I see it, because of my personal knowledge of infrastructure, a lot of infrastructural things, I have a concern about, number one, the material they use for bitumen to actually pave roads.
True, I agree.
Because our driving infrastructure, we have heavy-duty vehicles, light vehicles, and we use all the roads. And all those roads, our vehicle population right now is more than the population of Trinidad and Tobago, So I think what should be looked at is the materials used in basic infrastructure of our roadways. However, the other thing is, all main roads are under the Ministry of Works, not the corporation. We don't have or normally have the type of money to deal with main roads, right? However, we take care of the secondary roads, and our budget is always at a point where you cannot service all these minor roads. And our region probably has some of the most minor roads in Trinidad and Tobago. However, the budget is never enough to treat with all the potholes and the different things that would pop up. And even though Wassa come in and they fix their pipes, they are not dealing with the actually resurfacing, and so they should. But they don't. And it falls to the borough or the municipality to do the work. At one time when we were counting potholes in Diego Martin, we had over 3,000. Because we will get that type of information. And we try our best. We appeal to whoever we can appeal to get it done.
Because isn't there supposed to be like some supervisor of roads or some kind of thing?
Yeah, they have road supervisors and road managers.
Supposed to be driving around and checking for potholes, checking the quality of the roads, and all these kind of things. Because I mean, everybody complains, and I mean rightfully so. And then you have the politics in the thing, in the sense that every 5 years something the road ain't paved, but next thing you know, election coming up, and you see all the roads being paved. And something from my observation, I'm not a road specialist, but you can tell. Sometimes it's just a little thing they just kind of like scrape over the road, and they get a little steamroller, the road boop, 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 and by the time next day, the road paved, But by the time rain falls, or rain don't ever fall, but when it rains,
everybody feels it.
Pothole again. You see? I mean, how would we deal with this kind of, if you ask me, let me do use that word, but this form of, what's the word? Let's just say shoddy work.
Now, let me just put a common factor in there. The common factor is funding, regardless who is responsible. Because remember, I said before, the Ministry of Works is responsible for all main roads and highways. Whereas the municipalities and the boroughs, they are responsible for all the minor roads. Let me call them that.
Yes.
But I don't think there's a corporation in this country that have the level of funding to deal with that road infrastructure work. It's never enough, because, and we also depend on not just our supervisors, road supervisors, etc., going out to look at these situations. We depend a lot on the public advising us. These things are recorded. It goes to the necessary committees. You have the people who manage the infrastructure. the general infrastructure, and then you have your county superintendent, and that sort of thing, and they would, among their hierarchy, they would distribute the work accordingly, but the work could only be done if you have the funds to do it.
Now, talking about funding, now, only make a comparison. I don't know if it'll be a fair comparison, but you will tell me. Now, anybody who has been to Barbados, I remember even before my injury, I'm talking about early 80s, people used to always tell me, Roland, you know, if you go Barbados, Barbados has some lovely roads, you know, no potholes. And I was driven all over Barbados from Christchurch. I was staying in Christchurch to, what is it, St. Lucie? I think the most northern part of, memory serves me well, is St. Patrick. St. Lucie, that's the most northern part. I've been all over Barbados, whether it's St. Thomas, or whatever. And if I tell you that I've encountered a pothole, I'll be lying. That's one. And if I tell you that I've encountered a bag of rubbish by the side of the road, from my recollection back in 1989 when I was there, I have never seen that. Good. So it had to do with one, culture. In the sense, when I say culture, what people allow and what people are accustomed to in terms of the rubbish and thing all over the place and that kind of thing. There is a culture that we have to change, and what people allow in terms of the population allow the authorities to get away with. And when I mean authority, I don't necessarily mean the Martin Regional Corporation or anything, but I mean the higher ups. Because as you say, funding is part of the problem. But we were the richest, the richest Caribbean country at one time. We will all agree, whether we had oil, we had gas, had sugar at one time, and Mr. Shiraz Khan, he was here, and he was telling you that we used to export rice too. Right? So we were the richest Caribbean country. And even when we were, some of these things were still existing, because I told you, even before my injury, I got injured in 1983. And before that, we don't 81, 82 people used to be telling me that Roland, you go Barbados, lovely roads, that kind of thing, no potholes, that kind of thing. And what, in terms of the comparison to Barbados, why are we in this situation as far as the potholes and the rubbish and that kind of thing is concerned? Of course, as I said, that had to come from the higher ups in terms of the funding, because we are not a poor nation. And we are richer than Barbados, because Barbados just depend on tourism, while we just have the oil, the gas, the this, the that, and everything.
I would give my answer in this way.
Yeah.
As you said, we have the oil, we have the gas, we know where all our funding coming from.
And pitch, don't forget pitch too.
Yeah, yes, bitumen generally. So therefore, it would appear that we as a country, we have our priorities would be a little different to Barbados, because Barbados uses tourism to bring in the bulk of their income, where we know the bulk of our income is coming from oil and gas. And if you want tourism to work in Barbados, your infrastructure, your cleanliness and all these things have to be your number one priority. And if something is not an individual, I'm bringing it to an individual situation now. If something is not your number one priority, you tend not to invest in it as much as other things. I'm making a general statement here. I don't want to accuse anybody of anything.
Yes.
I just want, because you use Barbados as an analogy to deal with our situation. It's not, our priorities are totally different.
Yeah,
So, in other words, in terms of solving our problem, it means we from the top have to shift our priorities around to those health issues and infrastructure issues you are talking about.
Yeah. You see, this
It's the best answer I can give you without getting political.
I think,
and
yes.
I don't want to. Right?
Yes.
But
And I think
go.
that you give a very good answer.
Yeah. I want to compliment the staff at the borough while I was there, but in particular, the disaster management unit. I could safely tell you that unit is the best disaster management unit in Trinidad and Tobago. Our 3 men who deal with that, and the way they respond during times of crises like we are now, heading into the hurricane season, those people would be out there with you 24/7. I myself work with them because when we have a disaster, the head of the disaster management unit must give way to the chairman or the mayor. And I would have worked, there are times I worked 24 hours flat and come back the next night and work 18 hours straight, back to back. And those fellas would come out, and the women would come out and work all day, all night. Even during COVID, as a matter of fact, I call myself the COVID chairman. And I was never sick one day, thank God. I went to work every single day during COVID while people were falling around me.
Well, congratulations to them and many thanks to them. One issue I want to raise with you publicly, because you're the former chairman of the Martin Regional Corporation, has to do with the water situation. The people down Bagatelle, they have been complaining about lack of water. And you know, Diego Martin Regional Corporation, Diego Martin has many rivers and streams. Good, and the people in Bagatelle area have said that they only get water just on a Friday, and they're supposed to get to water. They have to set up like after 12 in the night in order, and sometimes they don't always get water for 2 more days. Why aren't Diego Martin being a valley? And you know, they're flooding, so they have a lot of waters coming down in the rivers and that kind of thing. I mean, is there any place that they could have a dam or some kind of thing where Diego Martin, the Valley P region, people could get regular water, that kind of thing?
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you raised that question and you talk about the amount of water that flows through Diego Martin. All that is true. However, research has shown, and because the Water and Sewage Authority, they meet with us once a month, you know, along with T and Tech, even TT Post, where we have our coordinating meeting and we meet with all the heads, Ministry of Works, everybody. The problem in Diego Martin, we have a lot of water, but we do not have enough empty space to dam. Think about it when you look around, how much wide open spaces we have to dam. We just don't have it. But the water runs off through the main causes. Unfortunately, we flood heavily, and the water just runs off. All the water goes into the sea, right? And if you look at the channel, because you should know them, think about any open space you can channel it. You can't. Added to which, the major problem is we get all the water because the amount of mountains we have around.
Yes, sir. What about in terms of alternative, like big metal tanks, like you know, like the oil field out there, the big metal tanks?
There are some areas in Diego Martin that have these tanks, but just not enough to really service everybody. So Wassa, let me put it, they ration the water. Like most other places, they have their times to put on the water. And those people who are aware, I advise people at least have 2 water tanks in your yard. When water is on, I have been doing that personally for years. And once the water is gone, your system must be as such where it doesn't run back out. And make sure you have check valves to make sure your water don't run back out. Because if you don't have check valves, your tank would be full now and the water gone. In less than an hour, you have no water in your tank.
You're right, Mr. Sigler Jack. We just want to thank everybody. We have come to the end of our program. And we just wanted to let everybody, we don't think encourage everybody to come out for the march, the parade on Friday, right?
Friday.
Good, because we are celebrating the 3rd anniversary of the Diego Martin Regional Corporation. And Mr. Sigler Jack was very instrumental as being the former chairman in bringing the Diego Martin Corporation into that kind of thing. We also want to thank Mr. Alex Singh, as always, for being the operator with us. Mr. Alex, thank you very much, and do have a beautiful afternoon.
All right, you're
to
very
everyone.
welcome. Thank you guys so much. and you're welcome. And we have to take a break here, but we have Under the Radar coming up next with David and Heavy Duty.
From access to specialized healthcare.
Why is Talk City 91.1 FM the leading talk station in Trinidad and Tobago? Because nobody delivers conversations like we do. Start your mornings with Ground Report. Andy Pitbull Williams, Lennox Smith, and Nigel Snipes setting the agenda from 6 to 9 a.m. Then it's Off the Record with Stefan Reese and Mr. X, Fearless Talk, and the issues everybody's discussing. Stay connected with Sharon. Ticket Front with Officer Shabadi. Go Beyond Limits with Roland Stewart. Drive Home with Heavy Duty and David Welch on Under the Radar. And wrap up your day with Kingsley and OB on The Wrap Up. Real talk, real people, real Trinidad and Tobago. Listen live on Talk City 91.1 FM and follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Talk City 91.1 FM, the #1 talk station in Trinidad and Tobago. Why is Talk City 91.1 FM the leading talk station?